Hey everybody, I'm back for another school. We're in a school, hence the fish. Figure most people have figured that out by now. So this episode, we are going to go over how to build the skeleton of an EDH deck. I'm going to be doing a series of these. We're going to go through every color combination, and we're going to go through a budget version and an optimal version. So that way you've got a place to start and a place to try and aim for in the future. So we're going to start off with white. We're just going to make our way around the color pie after I've gone through all 5 of the base colors. Then we're going to go through guilds, and then we're going to go through wedges and shards, and then we're going to go through 4 color and then 5 color. 4 and 5 are going to be a little tricky. We'll take those when we get there. So first things first, when you're ready to build a deck, you go to your collection, choose Add Deck. And we are going to do, you want to name it whatever helps you remember what it is. We're going to do a demo white mana base, and we are going for Commander. Always remember to change your format, otherwise you'll run into some issues when you're building. So I'm going to keep the scroller bar down really small as we're working, so you can keep a better eye on that. And then I'll keep these a little bit larger. When we're done, we'll blow this all up. So you always put your commander over here for those who are new to deck building on MTGO. I'm going to go ahead and slide that over a little because we're not going to be using that here. So for a core of a deck, there are a bunch of features you want to get into. I made sure to make notes so I don't leave anything out here. The numbers I look at, these are by no means absolutes. This is just a good place to start when you're working on a deck. You never want to neglect some of the more important sides of this format. If you build a deck without ramp or without card draw, it's going to lead to a really bad experience trying to play. So these are all things you need to take into consideration. So the very first thing we're going to look at is land. Actually, I will need to turn on just the Commander tab here for format. I have a few cards that are legal for my Legacy deck that aren't legal in Commander. And then we're going to be looking at white and colorless. So that is going to remove all the lands that produce colors that we don't want. There might be some, I think, that still produce white and another color, but I think they put those in this other color identity section down here. So when we're doing the more budgety version, the one you want to start out with, we're not looking at some of the most optimal stuff here, but we're going to see what we need to work with. You don't need to worry about Command Tower until you're into multicolor decks, so that one shouldn't concern you. One thing I do like playing in my monocolor decks are all the cycle lands. You'll have access to 3 of them for each color. I don't run them in decks that are off-colored or more than one color because it comes into play tapped as a big drawback. And we're going to see that on a lot of the dual lands, but we'll get there when we start doing the guilds. Every color has a man land. These are really, really useful. They survive board wipes. They're not targetable by sorceries. They're a really good thing to consider putting into your decks. Every deck is going to want 1 or 2 strip lands. Strip mine is the one that gives these their namesake. It's a land that can destroy other land. Especially with the new Ixalan style flip lands, there are a lot of really powerful lands in Commander, and if you go into a game without these, it's something you're going to regret. There's stuff like Tabernacle of the Veil, Tabernacle of the Veil, sorry, let me get the full name, Mazabith, Glacial Chasm. There's just so many lands that you need to be able to keep an eye on and get rid of if they start to cause a problem. In the one color stuff, you have access to these Visions lands. These were originally printed in Visions. They're a little slow sometimes, but I really like them in one color decks. They require you to return a untapped basic land to your hand when you play it, and they come in tapped, but they produce 2 mana. If you end up not drawing enough lands, this functions as an extra land drop, giving you a little bit of extra power. And the really nice thing is these are really, really inexpensive. You should be able to get them at a very low cost in paper or online. I really like the Memorial for white. I can make 2 soldier tokens, so late game you can turn it into creatures. This has become a more budgety card. White is really bad about card draw. It's something that's really lacking in the color. So getting anything that lets us draw extra cards comes at a premium. We kind of have to pay extra for it. Miko Koro lets everybody draw a card, but I think it's worth it. Mistvale Plains is kind of on the spectrum budget. It's like a $1 or $2 card in paper, I believe. But it lets you put a card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library, which in a pinch can be rather useful. It also counts as a Plains. New Vanilla is a really cool card. It's been printed a ton, so it's nice and cheap. Comes into play tapped, makes a white, and when it comes into play, you get to scry. Very, very valuable card. We, of course, want Plains. I'm going to start out putting all 30 in the deck, and then we're going to cut them back to a more manageable number once we get everything we need. I believe every deck in this format needs Reliquary Tower. You never know when you're going to get hit by Cyclonic Rift or Evacuation or any number of cards that are going to fill your hand up, and you don't want to be discarding half the stuff you had in play. Thankfully, this just saw a reprint, so it is a very budget-friendly card. If you have a deck where you want your commander to hit more consistently, Rogue's Passage is always a good consideration. That one's a little more commander-specific. Here's another one of our cycle lands, so we got all 3. Shepet Dunes is an interesting new addition. All these lands are really cool. They come in untapped. You can tap for colorless or pay a light for color. Hey, Zoidberg, are you joining my class? This one gives you a buff to all your creatures. It's really minor, but if you're running a token-heavy build, it can end games. So it's definitely something to take a look at, depending on how you're playing. Here's the strip mine I mentioned earlier. Ghost Quarter is definitely the cheapest of the strip lands. Another one to add some card draw to a white deck is Throne of the High City. Should be able to find that pretty inexpensively. Just past what I meant to put in. Temple of the False God. Do not count this as a land. This is a ramp spell. You have to have 5 lands in play before this is effective. So treat it as a 5-cost spell. Tectonic Edge is another really good budget strip land. Modern is starting to take an eye at this, so the price may change in the future. We'll just have to keep our eye on that one. What do you want, Zoidberg? You can come over here. Huh. He's being extra needy right now. Hello, Zoidberg. There's a price for you getting to come over here. You gotta dance for the camera. Okay, we got a Zoidberg dance. If you're running a lot of stuff that can attack in your mono white deck, Windburst Kites is another good addition. You're able to put one of the top 4 cards of your deck under it, and when you attack with 3 creatures, you can pay a 1 and tap this, 1 white and tap this, and play the card for free. In paper, you are allowed to play a land from underneath this, but there's currently a glitch on MTGO that doesn't let you play land from underneath it. They need to fix that bug. But that is a good card to include. Now we're at the end of the lands here, but that doesn't end what we're looking for. With every deck, I count 3 mana rocks in my my land count. And since we're in the budget frame, these are a little bit different. Always want Soul Ring. This is not the budget Soul Ring, but Soul Ring is a budgety card. They printed enough for everyone. We want one of the diamonds. This isn't Steven Universe, but there is a diamond for every color. We're going to be playing white diamond or marble diamond here. And then we want one other card that is a mana rock. For this one, let's go with Mindstone. Mindstone's a mana rock for 2, taps for a colorless, or you can pay 1 tap and sack it to draw a card. So if you get it late game, you can turn it into another card. And as you can see, we've got 48 cards here. That's way higher than it needs to be. So this is why I put the 30 planes in. We're going to be cutting planes here. Fortunately, there's no really good way I've found to cut this easier. But there we go. We want this magic number of 40. 37 lands and 3 mana rocks. So that is our start to our deck. This is the basis of everything we do here. So there's your budget mana base for a white deck. Our next thing we want to look at here. It's going to make me do this all over again. Okay, next thing we want is ramp. So in white, it's not as easy as when you're working with green. So I'm going to do some searches here for different keywords just to make this go a little easier. Knight of the White Orchid is a really good ramp spell for white. If someone has more lands than you when you cast this, you get to put a plains from your deck into play. This could even be Mistveil Plains, don't forget that. And it comes into play untapped, unless it's Mistveil Plains, which says it comes untapped. So that's one really good one. Tithe is another one that I like. You get to search for a plains card, put it in your hand. It doesn't put it into play, but it makes sure you can hit your land drops. And if someone has more land than you, you get to search for an extra one. So there's 2 ramp spells. I know Core Cartographer searches for plains and puts it into play, but it does it at a very high cost. It's 4 mana. And Eternal Dragon's another one that plain cycles. This works good in some situations. I don't know if I really like it in a lot though. He's a little deck specific. So next we're going to look for the term basic land. So this is going to pull up everything that mentions basic lands. I don't want to do Myriad Landscape because it's getting a little pricey. Wayfarer's Bauble is great though. So for 1 mana, it's an artifact, pay 2, tap and sack it, search your library for basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped. It gives every color access to rampant growth. So that's a really good addition. Star Compass basically gives us an extra marble diamond. With 22 planes in the deck, we're pretty sure we're going to have a basic land. So Star Compass is really good. Again, it only costs 2. Thematic Compass is one of my favorite cards right now. Lets you search lands out of your deck to your hand, and if you end up with 7 lands in play, it flips and becomes a maze. It's a very cheap card, and it really does its job well. The last one we're going to do for our budget is Burnished Heart. I'm sure everybody's familiar with the land elk. You can block with this guy, and after you've blocked, sack him for his abilities, so you get a block and you get 2 land out of him. So there's our 6 ramp spells. So once again, it's Wayfarer's Bauble, Tithe, Star Compass, Thematic Compass, Knight of the White Orchid, and Burnished Heart. Next thing is we want 5 cards that draw cards. So I'm going to search for the word draw. Again, this is white's biggest weakness, so we really got to get creative here for this color. Skull clamp is great. You should be able to find skull clamps in paper for about $1.50. Online, I know they're really cheap as well. You put that on a creature with 1 toughness for 1 mana, and you draw 2 cards off of it. So it's basically sack a creature, draw yourself 2 cards. It's really a broken card. It's way more powerful than it should have been. So that's a good first edition. Let's see where else we can go here. Again, we're thinking budget. When you're looking at cards, if it just draws a card once, it's not worth it. You don't want to play Wall of Omens and count it as a draw spell. If you're running a lot of equipment and auras, I think SRAM is a great card draw engine. So he's one to consider on a budget. Temple Bell. This one's really great. It's like Howling Mine, but you determine when you draw. You can do this at the end phase of the player before you, and get a little more value out of it. That way, if they draw a creature or a sorcery or a land, they don't get any value until after you have. You can see I didn't plan any of these out in advance. I'm working on the fly here because I wanted to make sure I give you guys a good assessment of this. Tamio's Journal. This is another good budget option. You get a clue token every turn, so it's going to cost you 2 mana to draw the extra card. But if you build up 3 clues, you can turn it into a tutor. So that's a really good option. So let's see, what do we have 2 now? 1, 2, 3. So we've got 3 so far. Staff of Nin. This is a card I really think should be in a lot more commander decks. Gives you an extra card every turn, and you can ping any target with it. You can ding a player, you can ding a planeswalker, you can take out a creature with a little bit of toughness, or if you didn't manage to kill it yet. So there's another good option, so that's up to 4. As you can see, there's not a lot of good options in white. This is the problem this color faces. Giriper Orrery. This is a card not many people think about when they think card draw. Each player may play an extra land on each of their turns, and at the beginning of each player's upkeep, if they have no cards in hand, they draw 3 cards. This works out a lot better than you think it does. Since white's low on card draw, you really need to think about the fact you're going to be out of cards a lot of the time. So this is going to fill your hand back up. It's going to be a lopsided benefit. Your opponents are not going to get the advantage out of that. So we've only got 5 card draw spells. Okay, 5 is all I was going to go with. I was thinking it was 6. So that's what we're going to run for budget white here. Our next thing we want to look at is targeted removal. And in Commander, I honestly put more value on stuff that exiles, because there's so many decks that can just get their cards right back. So you want to look at ways to get them out of the game completely. So unfortunately, Path to Exile has become a rather expensive card thanks to Modern, so we're going to look over that one right now. Swords to Plowshares, thankfully, has seen a million reprints, and I think this is the best targeted removal card ever printed. So that is 100%. You don't want to neglect other card types, though. Declaration in Stone is another good way to remove creatures, and it's not an expensive card. Revoke Existence is amazing removal. Its only drawback is its sorcery speed, but it'll exile an artifact or enchantment. Forsake the Worldling is another one I'm very much in love with. Does the same thing as Revoke Existence, but it's instant speed and you can cycle it in a pinch. I used to play Fate Forgotten for the exact same ability, but it just didn't cycle. So if you find that you need instant speed, you can always swap out Revoke Existence for Fate Forgotten. It does the same thing, just to get instant speed. Make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Oblivion Ring, another really good option. This will exile any non-land permanent. And it'll sit under that card until it gets removed. If you have access to it, I like Grasp of Fate better than Oblivion Ring, but in paper it's getting kind of pricey. So we're up to 4 target removal cards. Let's see what else we can find here. Return to Dust is great. I think it's going for about $1 in paper now. But it'll get rid of 2 artifacts or enchantments if you play it on your turn. And then Palace Jailer is another one of my favorites. He's still really cheap as long as you don't go for foil. He gives you the Monarch, so he gives you some card draw, always important to consider. And as long as you stay the Monarch, he basically functions as an Oblivion Ring. You can lose him, you just don't want to lose Monarch. So I think that's going to be it for a targeted removal, unless I totally missed something. Okay. So I have to get fancy and search for specific names. After targeted removal, we want 2 board wipes minimum. If you can play more is definitely better. For this one, let's do again, we're thinking budget. Day of Judgment is the budget Wrath of God. You can find this card pretty inexpensively. For the same mana cost, it just allows creatures to regenerate, which they're phasing out that mechanic, so you're not going to see it that much anyway. It's basically just as good. And then, let's see, what's another really good one? This is honestly one of my favorite board wipes. It's so really inexpensive. I'm kind of surprised. The way it functions, so for 5 mana, for every single player, this includes you, you choose from among the permanents that player controls an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker. So 4 cards. And then they sacrifice every other non-land card they control. The subtle thing there is you pick those 4 cards. You can look at an opponent and go, okay, I'm going to pick your servo token as your artifact and your creature. I'm going to pick this aura on one of your creatures as your enchantment, and it's a creature that they're going to have to sacrifice. And I'll pick your planeswalker that's down to 1 counter. And you pick their worst stuff. And for you pick your best stuff. This card really gets some mileage. It's a really good board wipe. And again, it's budget. So there's our 2 board wipes. And at this point, we have a fully formed skeleton for a mono-white commander deck on a budget. So this is what you're looking at. I'll try and go through these kind of slow. We have our 37 land and 3 basic mana rocks. We have 6 ramp spells, 5 draw spells, 6 removal spells, targeted removal, and 2 board wipes. And again, all our targeted removal exiles, which is what you want to look for. White really does that better than any other color. They may lack in the card draw area, but they really pick it up in the targeted removal and the board wipes. So this is a great shell to start with. It leaves you 40 cards to basically flavor out your deck. This is where you pick your commander. This is where you find all the other stuff that fills your deck and makes it unique. Again, you can play around with these a little and make them a little different. You don't have to keep them exactly the way they are. Because everybody's flavor is a little bit different when they play Commander. So now, how does this look for doing non-budget? Say you've got a really great collection like mine, and you want to play a little more hardcore. Here's how we're going to do that. We're going to look for these all the same way, and we're going to be picking some of the more high-end stuff. So we're still going to go with our, we're still going to go with our cycle lands. Shrink this down so we can see everything on screen easier. We're going to add in Myria. If you have 7 planes in play at the beginning of your upkeep, you return a creature from your graveyard to play. That's really, really good. It's not obvious. As far as strip lands, I love Field of Ruin. That's one of the best strip lands in the game right now. That was a really great card from Ixalan. Let's see, I still like the man land. I'm trying to do this quickly without having to make a list. Here's my card that's banned in Commander. You can see why it's banned in Commander. I like Kildoran Outpost. It's an underappreciated card from Ice Age that makes soldier tokens. Court Haven is one of my favorite cards ever printed. Gives us an extra Maze of Ith. Maze of Ith is a definite card to include if you have one. Just don't count it as land. It doesn't produce mana, it is not functionally a land. We're not going to worry about Miho Quarter because we're going to have some better options here. Mistvale Plains, Myriad Landscape, New Vanilla. Most monocolor decks can really abuse Nykthos. It is a great functional ramp spell. This one we know we're going to have a lot of non-basics, so only have 20 in at the moment. We're going to have to cut a few of those out. Reliquary Tower. Cycle Land. If you're going heavy on enchantments, Sarah's Sanctum is definitely nice to include. Again, it's very deck specific. Scavenger Grounds as a way to get rid of graveyards for Marin, Muldrotha, and the like. Because you will see those decks. Again, I run 2 strip lands, Field of Ruin and Strip Mine. You're going to see both of those in just about every non-budget build. I don't really bother with Temple of the False God all the time. Again, it functions more like a ramp spell than an actual land. Do you like Throne of the High City? Wondrous Heights is nice. Okay, we got our group at 37. That actually worked out really well. So what are my 3 mana rocks? Well, when we're not going budget, we're still doing Marble Diamond. We're still doing Soul Ring. I really think Soul Ring and Reliquary Tower are the 110% auto includes for every deck. And then what is our last one? Is anybody surprised? Mana Crypt. So there's all our mana and our 3 rocks. Now we're going to look at ramp. So when we're looking at ramp and we've got a little bit more of a budget to work with, we're still going to go with Knight of the White Orchid. Nothing else on the high end here. Tithe is still an option. I'm going to go ahead and drop it in. We're going to see if we can find something I like better. Then we start looking for the basic land. Wayfarer's Pablo is good. Land tax is huge. We'll get to something cool with land tax in a minute here. Nomadic Compass, Burnished Heart, and Gauntlet of Power and Cage Sun. I know we're over our count. We're going to tweak this here. So how many have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're over by 2. I'm going to pull out the Tithe. And I'm going to pull out the Cage Sun. We'll go with the cheaper Gauntlet of Power since they're pretty identical. So that's what we're looking at for our ramp in our more expensive build. Wayfarer's Bauble, Land Tax, Nomadic Compass, Knight of the White Orchid, Burnished Heart, and Gauntlet of Power. Next thing we're looking for is card draw. Sensei's Dividing Top is functional card draw. It lets you draw the best of the top 3 cards in your deck. Be sure you're comfortable playing this around other people, because if you're very slow at this card, you're going to draw a lot of hate. Also, this card's impossible to remove except with, what's the name of it, Cursing Grip. If someone tries to remove it, you just tap it, use that last ability, draw a card, and put it on top of the owner's deck. That way it gets out of the way of the targeted removal. So that's our functional card draw. Still going to run Skull Clamp because, as I said, it's absolutely broken. Let's see what else I like here. Sword of Fire and Ice is functional card draw. It's a very, very good option. Solemn should go in most decks if you can afford a copy. I don't know if I ever really count him as ramp because he costs 4, or draw because he only draws once. He's just a very valuable creature to put into a build. So it's something to consider when you're working with him. If you have a lot of life gain in your deck, well, Lost Dreams is a good option. Alms Collector is really nice if you're in a metagame where everybody likes to play draw spells, especially lots of blue players. Mind's Eye is a card I really, really, really like. That's actually one of my top cards that I play in my decks. We're going to go with Staff of Nin again. If you don't have Planeswalkers in your deck, or you have like maybe just one, go with Immortal Sun instead. They're both great, but you don't want to shut off your own Planeswalkers. Again, if you just have one, the chances of drawing them at the same time are pretty low. So it's okay to run it in a deck with one. And then our last one, we're going to go with Tamiya's Journal again. So there's our 5 card draws. Just to recap, it is Sensei's Divining Top, Skull Clamp, Sword of Fire and Ice. Oh, we actually have 6. Mind's Eye, Tamiya's Journal, and Staff of Nin. If I had to count one of these, I would probably keep the Journal. So we'll keep it at 5 just to keep it symmetrical to the other version we built. Now we want to do our 6 removal. And again, we're looking at Exile first. With white, we can lean on the Exile. We want Path to Exile. We want Swords to Plowshares. Those 2 are pretty much guarantees. That's the best creature removal in Magic. That's what I missed. So on the card drop, we have a combo we can play in mono white that other colors don't get. I would actually remove the sword to play this. Scroll Rack. So you're wondering how this is card drop, because you're just replacing cards with the same number of cards. With Land Tax, we fetch 3 planes out of the deck. Then we activate Scroll Rack and put those 3 planes back on top of the deck for whatever the 3 other cards are. That way we still have 3 planes to fetch out next time with Land Tax, but we're basically drawing 3 extra cards a turn, thanks to the combo. So if you've got a way to tutor that out, Enlightened Tutor, Idyllic Tutor to get the land tax, get the scroll rack. There's a lot of ways to get them both into play. That is an amazing card draw engine. Just throwing that one out there. I totally forgot to search for the scroll rack. Again, doing these on the fly. I'm not going to bother with Revoke Existence here, because we're going to have a better suite of cards to play with. I still like Forsake the Worldly. Never neglect Tiberius Protection. You have a spot for it when you're building. It's just not falling into our guaranteed cards. Council's Judgment. So this works a little differently than most cards in Magic. Starting with you, each player votes for a non-land permanent you don't control, so you can't target your stuff. Exile each permanent with the most votes or tied for the most votes. So if everyone picks one card with one player, it's the card that's going to go. If everyone picks a different card, every card goes. If two cards have the same number of votes, two cards go. The thing that most people miss about this is this can target things with Hexproof and Shroud. Let me say that again. This targets things that have Hexproof and Shroud. It does not say target anywhere on this card. You vote for a permanent. That is amazing removal. And since you're the first one to vote, what you vote on usually is the thing that goes. It's been very, very unlikely that I've seen something else get removed. Grasp of Fate is the Oblivion Ring of choice for me. You get to exile a card from each player. And most people won't try to remove it because there's going to be something under there of someone else's that they don't want to see come back. And what do we have for our last targeted removal? It's probably going to be Return the Dust or Palace Jailer. Yeah, that's what we're going with. You can honestly go with either of these. The better of the two is probably Return to Dust. You'll be able to stop more infinite combos with this, which if you're playing off of a budget, you're going to see more combos. So we're going to go with that one. Now for two board wipes. Tragic Arrogance is a great one to work with. It's definitely one of the ones to consider. But as far as the two I think are the best, the first one is Terminus. You can play it for a miracle cost if you draw it. It can be quite the miracle to draw it when you need it. And it puts all creatures on the bottom of their owner's library. This gets rid of indestructible things. It gets rid of things that can regenerate. It probably is the best creature board wipe. Like, I can't think of a single card better than that. And then our second one is Austere Command. For 6 mana, you get to pick 2. Destroy all artifacts, destroy all enchantments, destroy all creatures converted mana cost 3 or less, destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 4 or greater. So you can destroy all creatures, you can destroy all token creatures and all enchantments, destroy all token creatures and all artifacts, destroy all enchantments and artifacts. You can destroy all monstrous creatures and artifacts. I'm trying to stay in sync there. This is the most flexible and powerful board wipe in Magic, I think. It's so good. When you're playing in white, honestly, I would go with more than 2 board wipes, but I would say 2 is definitely your minimum. Wrath of God's also a great option, but again, Terminus is my go-to, personally. So this is everything for a shell to build a non-budget mono white commander deck. You've got 59 cards here. Once you pick out your commander, you use those other 40 spots to add all your flavor to your deck. Figure out where you want the deck to go, what you want to do. if you're leaning on something heavy like an enchantment game, you might change up what some of the removal you pick is. This is just a very generic shell to work with. I'm trying to go through slow, but I know I'm not doing it very well. I'll go back a couple times here. When you're finished building your deck, in my ideal, you want around 30 creatures in your deck. That's usually the good number. If you're going creature heavy, you can go as high as 40. If you're going for more control oriented, not with creatures, you can drop down to maybe around 20. There are definitely things that break those rules, but that's a good rule of thumb. But this is what you're looking at for a good generic build to start with. And the last thing I'm going to get into here, if you go to the settings and the analysis on your deck, you can see your mana curve. Now this is an unfinished deck, of course, but what you want to see when you're done, as far as the commander format go, you want this to peak at 3 converted mana cost. You want this to be the biggest bar on here. And then you want 2 to be a little bit bigger than 4, but you want it to curve over like that. It can tail off a little longer as it goes into the upper cost, because you're probably going to have some 7s, maybe 1/8. Of course, you want to keep those as low as possible, but you want it to have that smooth curve look to it. If I pull up one of my generic decks, let's pull up Teysa. She's one of my favorite decks. As you guys know, I use my Teysa avatar. If I'm to pull up her mana curve, now granted, my 4 is higher than my 2, but look how nice a transition that is. We peak at 3, and we just smoothly curve back out. Pull up another deck here. Let's look at Tattovia. And I pull up her curve. Well, her curve is messed up. She's a land-heavy deck, though. Again, you're going to have stuff that breaks these rules. These are just your rule of thumb to get you moving. Let's look at Manzeric here. There you go, fairly smooth curve. You can see all my curves are peaking at 3. Ishkana might be a little weird because Spider Tribal. Nope, there we go, perfect curve. 2's a little bit bigger than 4, but we still have the curve at 3. In most other formats, you want your curve to peak at 2, but Commander's a little bit special format because games go longer. Bigger spells are what win games usually, but you want your decks to curve and max at 3. That's just how this format works. This is an elf deck, so okay, still maintains the curve pretty well. Like literally all my decks are going to have this same kind of curve to them. Like here's a budget deck that I did for a friend. This was a $4.50 online build. There you go, perfect curve. Now when we get into doing 2-color things, we'll start talking about the colored mana symbol thing over here on the left, but that's not something to worry about when we're just doing these demo decks and the monocolors. But there you go. You have your budget and optimal skeleton for a mono-white commander deck. Hope that was helpful for anyone. Happy to always take you to school. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments or send them to me on Twitter, and we will take care of them. I'll see you guys next time with more of tutorial time.